He didn't leave the right path suddenly. He didn't wake up one day and decide to change his beliefs. He simply delayed what mattered, again and again. A prayer postponed, a reminder ignored, a truth pushed aside. And without realizing it, the distance grew. This is not just his story. It is a quiet question for anyone who believes they still have time. He did not wake up one morning and decide to abandon the right path. That is not how it happens. It happens quietly, slowly, in ways that are easy to justify and even easier to ignore. At first, nothing seemed wrong. He still believed in God. He still knew what was right and what was wrong. He still considered himself a good person. But something subtle began to change. A prayer was delayed. Not intentionally, he told himself, just postponed until later. Later became tomorrow. Tomorrow became another day. And slowly, what was once essential became optional. He stopped asking himself why. Life felt busy. Responsibilities piled up. Goals demanded attention. And in his mind, faith became something to return to when things slowed down. But life never slows down. The reminders he once welcomed now felt inconvenient. Advice sounded repetitive. Reflection felt uncomfortable. So he avoided it, not out of arrogance, but out of distraction. That is how distance began. Not with a major sin, not with open rebellion, but with neglect. Days passed, and his heart grew accustomed to silence, the silence of not remembering, the silence of not questioning. Externally, he was progressing. People praised his effort. His achievements were visible. But internally, something was fading. He noticed it most at night, when the world finally quieted, and there was no audience to impress, no work to complete, no noise to hide behind. That was when his heart spoke. It asked questions he did not want to answer. Why do you feel empty when you have so much? Why does satisfaction disappear so quickly? Why does your soul feel restless? He tried to silence those questions. He filled his time. He filled his schedule. He filled the silence with anything that would keep him from thinking. But the heart does not forget its purpose. Deep down, he knew what was missing. It was not success. It was not comfort. It was not recognition. It was direction. There was a time when his choices felt aligned, when his actions matched his values, when he felt accountable not only to people, but to his Creator. Back then, life felt lighter, not easier, but clearer. Now, clarity was gone. He told himself this was normal, that everyone goes through phases, that faith here rises and falls. But something inside him resisted that excuse, because this did not feel like fluctuation. It felt like distance. Distance from prayer, distance from gratitude, distance from remembering that life has an end. He rarely thought about accountability anymore, rarely thought about standing alone with his deeds, rarely asked himself what truly mattered. And when the thought of death crossed his mind, he pushed it away. I'm still young, he said. I have time. Time to change, time to return, time to become better. That belief comforted him. But comfort can be dangerous when it delays truth. With every delay, returning felt harder. With every excuse, sincerity weakened. Because returning requires honesty, and honesty requires facing what we have ignored. So he continued forward, even though the path no longer felt right, even though his heart quietly warned him. And without realizing it, he was no longer just walking away from the path. He was walking away from himself. The awakening did not come with thunder or signs in the sky. It came through an ordinary moment, A moment so simple that he almost ignored it. He was standing still, scrolling through familiar distractions when the news appeared. Someone he knew, someone close to his age, was gone. No warning, no long illness, no farewell, just gone. For a few seconds, his mind rejected it. Then reality settled in. A life had ended, plans unfinished, words unsaid. And suddenly, death was no longer a distant idea. It was close, uncomfortable, personal. That night, sleep did not come easily. His thoughts circled around one question he could not escape. What if that had been me? What if today was the end? What would remain? Not his achievements, not his schedule, not the image people had of him, only his deeds. The thought unsettled him. He realized how rarely he thought about accountability, how rarely he imagined standing alone, with nothing but his actions. No excuses, no explanations, no second chances, just truth. For the first time in years, he felt the weight of responsibility, not imposed by others, but felt deeply within. He remembered verses he had once known by heart, words about meeting the Creator, words about every soul being returned. He had not forgotten them, he had avoided them. Because remembering the hereafter changes how you live in this world, and he had not wanted to change. But now, the reminder refused to leave. Every choice felt heavier. Every moment felt more meaningful. He began to see his days differently, how much time was wasted, how easily blessings were taken for granted, how quickly he turned away from moments meant for reflection. He asked himself difficult questions. When was the last time I prayed with presence? When was the last time I thanked God sincerely? When was the last time I asked for forgiveness without excuses? The answers were painful, but pain has a purpose. It reveals what comfort hides. He realized something important. He had not drifted away because he did not believe. He had drifted away because he stopped remembering. And forgetting is dangerous, because when a person forgets why they were created, they begin to live as if life has no end. That night, he sat alone again. But this time, the silence felt different. It was not empty. It was honest. And in that honesty, a realization settled in his heart. Awakening does not begin with changing everything. It begins with admitting the truth. I am not ready to meet my Creator. And that realization shook him more than any fear ever could. That night changed nothing on the outside. The world did not pause. The sun did not rise differently. Life continued exactly as before. But inside him, something had shifted. For the first time, he stopped pretending that change was impossible. He stopped telling himself that returning was too late. Instead, he faced a simple but powerful truth. Returning is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming honest. He understood something he had forgotten for a long time. God does not ask for flawlessness. He asks for sincerity. That realization softened his heart. He remembered that every soul is created weak, and that weakness is not a flaw. It is an invitation to seek help, to ask for forgiveness, to turn back. He sat quietly and reflected. How many times had he delayed repentance, believing there would be another chance? How often had he mistaken God's mercy for permission to continue drifting? He realized how dangerous that mindset was. Mercy is not a guarantee of tomorrow. It is an opportunity today. For the first time, he did not make excuses. He spoke honestly, even if no words came out loud. He admitted his distance. He admitted his neglect. He admitted his fear of facing the truth. And in that honesty, something beautiful happened. He felt relief. not because his past was erased, but because his heart finally stopped lying to itself. He understood that repentance is not a dramatic moment. It is a decision to stop running, a decision to take responsibility, a decision to walk forward with awareness. He also understood that returning does not mean the path will be easy. There will be habits to break, comforts to question, temptations that do not disappear overnight. But now, he was no longer unaware. He knew that every prayer mattered, every intention mattered, every choice carried weight. He began to see faith not as a burden, but as guidance, not as restriction, but as protection. And most importantly, he understood this. The path to God is never closed, but it must be chosen. Every day, again and again. That morning, when he stepped into the world, he was not transformed, but he was committed to remembering, committed to correcting himself when he failed, committed to never letting distance grow unnoticed again. Because the true return is not a single step, it is a way of walking. And the meaning of the journey is not found at the end. It is found in choosing the truth. Every time you are tested,